GridRival preview show for the F1 Mexico Grand Prix. As you'll see, it's only two of us today, but your two favorites, thankfully, for everyone involved. I'm here with William. I am Ryan. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to William to drive the show.
Yeah, time for the Mexico Grand Prix after... hang on, I'm getting an echo. That just distracted.
Also, our Marshmallow, I apologize for the lack of the loud music. I forgot where that lives in here. Ross is the main producer of the show, and I'm driving the ship today, unfortunately for everyone involved. But yeah, so we have no theme music.
Yeah, he's the theme music guy. Yeah, and I forgot to press pause on YouTube, so I started hearing myself 5 seconds in the past. Because I have to have the chat up, I have to have YouTube up. But I don't actually want to hear YouTube.
We're off to a hot start.
Yeah, this is an amazing production here. Anyway, as I was saying, on to the Mexico Grand Prix, the second of the 4 races in the Americas this fall. We had the USGP last week right here in Austin, Texas. And it had its moments. Probably not as much close racing as we would have hoped. Certainly the sprint was a moment with the McLarens having a little get together. Max Verstappen had a dominant weekend, almost Grand Slams both races. The Grand Slam is when you start from pole, win the race, lead every lap, and set fast lap. That's the only one he didn't do. He didn't get fast lap in the race. So Max doing Max things. And that was one of the big takeaways. As far as fantasy value, our biggest winners would be Tsunoda and Hulkenberg, both up $2 million. Max was up $1 million. Leclerc up 1.8. Behrman and Lawson up almost $1 million. So those were the winners. Tsunoda really coming alive as well, which is interesting to see with the change of leadership at Red Bull. And I hear now people are thinking maybe Tsunoda should stick around in that seat next year. Maybe they shouldn't be pushing him out the door for Hadjar.
Although he probably shouldn't be finishing behind a reserve driver in a practice session.
True. That said, maybe they had Windblad on low fuel and Tsunoda didn't. We don't really know if it was apples to apples. We don't know what Red Bull was doing. FP1 is always a weird animal just because it's at a different time of day from the race. And in fact, like you get a set of tires just for the first half of FP1 so that people actually go out during FP1. So, yeah, anyway, those would be our big winners. Our big losers fantasy-wise, Carlos Sainz running into Antonelli made himself a $2 million loser. Bortoleto down $2 million. Hadjar down 1.8. Alonso and Piastri down around $1 million. Gasly down $1 million. And a few others down smaller amounts. So, yeah, on the driver's side, that's how it was for fantasy. No huge winners on the constructor side. Nobody up more than 1.1 million. We got McLaren, Ferrari, Aston, and Haas all up about $1 million. Racing Bulls and Williams down a bit over 1.5 are big winners and losers there. So, on to Mexico. Higher elevation than anywhere else on the calendar by a mile. Mexico City even higher up than Denver is. Mexico City up like 7,000 feet above sea level, I believe.
Yeah, they got about 2,000 feet on us here in Denver.
Yeah, so this becomes a low downforce affair and makes the cooling a bit tougher as well with that thinner air, these cars being air-cooled. So that's a potential consideration. It's not a very heavily used circuit either. And so a couple of thoughts about Mexico. And we get into the driver tiers next. I didn't forget anything, right? Driver tiers.
I was going to say that with the dust, a lot of dust talk early this morning at FP1. A lot of talk about the dust and the altitude elevation.
They had the rookies dusting off the track, I guess. Yeah, we had 9 young drivers in FP1, which makes the FP1 results really interesting to interpret. So every team has to have a young driver in each of their cars for 2 FP1s a year, unless they're running a rookie, which Bortoleto and Hadjar count as rookies, so they don't get replaced at any point this year.
Yeah, and to that point, I see Marshmallow in the chat said FP1 doesn't offer much, and when half the grid was reserve / rookie drivers. So
Yeah. And the other thing is you can't do it as sprint weekends or at a street course. So Mexico becomes a popular choice. And there's only one chance left this year, Abu Dhabi. Everything else being either a sprint or a street course. So expect more of this at the end of the year as well, leading into the test that they do shortly after the season at that same track. Anyway, on to our tiers. And our first tier is a tier of 2 drivers, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, 29.8 and 27.8. And what do we call this tier?
This is the La La Land tier. As everyone probably recalls, a few years back, we had a mix-up in the envelope for Best Picture at an award show called the Oscars, which is fitting because everyone kind of thought Oscar Piastri had the Drivers' Championship locked up, and now these two are competing for it. They are right back in the mix. I was very slow to the Max Verstappen is a Drivers' Championship contender. I thought he was way too far behind, and I now see that I was very wrong about that. He is very much in the mix.
I personally don't think Max pulls it off.
I don't either, but so, I'm considering it now, and like I was kind of shrugging off everything about Max winning the championship, but now I'm starting to see that like it is definitely a possibility. I still think he doesn't get there, but he is there now.
And he's not going to get there for lack of pace. He's not going to get there because there is an above 50% chance, in my opinion, that at some point Lando Norris drives into him. He's driven into a lot of things this year, including his teammate twice. And yeah, I think at some point he's going to run into Max, and Max doesn't really have wiggle room as far as how many points he has to make up. Max's Red Bull does seem to be the fastest car on the grid at this point. If you want to sign Max for 5 races, I'm fine with that. Max is a contender to win all 5 remaining races, and both of our remaining sprints, Brazil and Qatar. Brazil is the next race, Qatar 2 races after that. For those of you who are trying to time contract lengths around sprint weekends where drivers score points for sprints. So I actually last week I signed Max for 5 on my team, so I'll have him except for Abu Dhabi since we still have the cool down rule. Yeah, Max is a great choice. Lando might be a bit pricey. I think Piastri catches back up to him. I think last weekend was a bit of an aberration, and the collision at the beginning of the sprint definitely set that team back as far as setup data. So I'm slightly less enthusiastic about Norris, but I do fully expect him to podium. So he's a reasonable choice as well out of this tier.
Yeah, assuming no reliability issues, which can pop up here at Mexico City with the elevation. We've seen it in the past, but yeah, assuming everything goes all right. Like, I mean, Max and Lando, I think you can almost just pencil them in. They're going to be on the podium. Not quite sure which order, but I would imagine they'll be 1 to 2. I'd probably give the slight edge to Max. If I had to pick a winner, I'd say it's him, Lando second, and then we'll get into who will be that 3rd spot in tier 2 because it'll probably be someone from that tier.
And we've seen Lando lose an engine already this year. I'd hate to have the title decided that way, but that is part of the game. You gotta finish, and yeah, like that wouldn't be the first time McLaren has lost the championship to reliability. Just ask Kimi Räikkönen.
Oh, Kimi. But yeah, and I see someone in the chat saying that a couple of Piastri comments about Piastri being on sale and Piastri costing someone their lead in the league, and yeah, it's been probably a rough time to be on Piastri. I thought he was a pretty good contract value last week. Turned out to maybe be a week early. He had another rough showing in Austin. But again, it's going to be hard to pass him up at this price. And he's still, I think, pretty level with Lando. Although Lando has outperformed him, it seems like a few weekends in a row now.
Yeah. So on to that next tier. The rest of our non-talent drivers. We've got George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, and Lewis Hamilton, ranging from 26.8 to 21.7 million, which means that none of these drivers are going to fall below the talent line this week. And what tier do we call this?
This is the Everest Base Camp tier. They haven't quite reached the summit like Max and Lando are, and probably aren't favored to win the race like those two are. But they started the journey. They're in the mix, and they're at a very high altitude, which fits Mexico City extremely well.
So, what are your thoughts on this tier? Who do you like?
It's going to be it's such a cop out answer, but we need FP2 and FP3. It was Leclerc out there. He was fastest in FP1, only against really Piastri out of the main drivers. We didn't see Hamilton. We didn't see Russell. I imagine Russell will probably end up being my favorite out of this tier. Actually, no, it's Piastri. I was talking about him last tier, but I do think Piastri comes back to life. Piastri finishes on the podium. But outside of him, which we've already talked about, especially with him being on sale, I probably say Russell just because Antonelli seemed to have some solid pace. I believe Russell will be faster than Antonelli. So by that reasoning of method, yeah, it's probably Russell. Let's look strong here.
How do you like Russell compared to Leclerc?
Well, it's hard, again, because we have not seen Russell on the track. My gut says Russell will be better than Leclerc, but I am willing to wait for FP2 and FP3 data to really make that choice. My guess is both of them will be rosterable, but yeah, it's going to be hard to have both on one single roster. I don't think you'll go wrong with either of the two, but I will be deferring to practice data to figure out which one of those I would want if they fit into my team.
And so I'm actually inclined towards Leclerc over Russell. So my thinking here is that Ferrari looked good last week in Austin. They won Mexico last year. They double podiums Mexico last year. They've got some history of success at Mexico. And Leclerc did look fast in practice. I think it was legitimate speed. Yes, he was surrounded by young drivers. He was faster than Piastri's McLaren. So I actually like Russell over Leclerc, and I do think he could potentially score a few more teammate points than Russell. I think Antonelli is going to be closer than Hamilton, probably. Don't know what it is with him this year. Not having this practice session is certainly not going to help the cause. Yeah, Caleb mentioning like I was cool on Ferrari last week. Yeah, I want to know how that race goes last week. If that race were as hot as it was supposed to be, like things actually ended up like they were talking like low 90s. It ended up being 85 on Sunday, so that may have changed things a little bit. But Ferrari does actually look a bit more real now. So yeah, let's go Ferrari. And clearly, McLaren's just given up on development, and everyone else is still fighting for second. So they're going to keep trying. McLaren's going to slip down the order a little bit. That's sort of how it goes. So
yeah, it was weird because
go ahead.
I think Lando was pretty clearly faster than Leclerc last week. Leclerc got him on the start. He was on the softs, had a better line out of turn one, or I guess going into turn one, but I think that if that doesn't happen, Lando doesn't stick with Max, but Lando probably runs away from Leclerc if he had stayed in front of him after turn one. But I guess on the flip side, Piastri wasn't able to catch Hamilton. So it's really weird up top right now with Russell, both the McLarens, both the Ferrari. It's hard to kind of pick through, which is why, again, it's going to be so tough for us to come up with anything just after FP1, especially considering half of them didn't run.
Yeah, so Leclerc and Piastri for me are my likes out of this tier. Piastri is on sale. Piastri can at least podium. And if he wants to win the championship, it would behoove him to stay ahead of Lando at the very least, if not Max as well. So I think we'll see a nice comeback from Piastri this week. So Leclerc and Piastri, who I like out of this tier, I'm less excited about Russell. I might change my opinion in a few hours.
Yeah, again, all these opinions. It is tough with the showtime for this week, being able to only get FP1, especially considering we only saw half the drivers. So we're doing our best.
All right, next tier. And we're into talent driver territory. We've got Kimi Antonelli, Oliver Behrman, Yuki Tsunoda, and Alex Albon as our first tier, ranging from 17.3 to 15.7 million. And our tier is
the On the Border tier. For anyone who remembers the chain restaurant, they might still be around. I haven't seen one in forever. On the Border, Mexican food in America, everyone's favorite. And these guys are all on the border of talent driver territory.
okay. Yeah. So fair name. And three of these drivers could move above the line if they have really good days. Albon can't. We're going to get at least one more weekend of Albon talent driver. And that's going to be a sprint weekend. So that could actually come in handy. My likes here, I like Antonelli. Antonelli's figured out the car. He's catching up. And hopefully he'll be nowhere near Sainz this week, so he won't get punted. Haas looked okay in practice today. Who was it that ran? It was Ocon. He ended up 7th in practice. Haas looked okay. They were how far off the pace? Get rid of the pop-up. Pulls up the results here. Okay, he was 0.65 seconds behind, so not insurmountably slow. Like it was okay. Again, FP1, we got a bunch of young drivers, but he was ahead of some full timers. I would like to see what Haas can do. We've seen Behrman have a few good races recently. So Behrman's okay. Tsunoda has picked up the pace. I think Antonelli and Tsunoda are my favorites out of this bunch. Behrman also potentially okay, but you could just go Ocon for way cheaper.
Yeah. Tsunoda is kind of, I feel like, the turning point of this tier. I am not sure what I want to do with him yet. I saw someone in the chat called out Tiger Squid. Yeah, it's not a good look to have a reserve driver beat you in a practice session. Again, I know William mentioned we don't know what the programs were. It could have been different, but either way, it looks bad, and there's no way around that. I was very impressed with Yuki's drive last week, and I've been kind of pro Yuki for a little bit now. I believe he got the new front wing, which should theoretically help him. So jury is still out on Yuki for me. I would have liked to see a little better performance in FP1, but if he looks fairly strong in either of the next two practice sessions, I will have no problem throwing him on the roster and potentially making him a talent driver. And yeah, I agree with your take on Antonelli. He seems to really be coming into his own. It seems like he's figured it out. That Mercedes should have some pace this weekend, and he had a very nice practice session today.
And Tsunoda's driving for his career. Like he might end up out of Red Bull. If he's out of Red Bull, his best case scenario is probably reserve driver at Aston until one of those guys quits. It seems like he's a Honda guy, and that's why he's been with Red Bull. And Honda's going away. Like they're going to be powering Aston next year. So yeah. I think Tsunoda's going to be racing as though he's not going to be in the Red Bull organization next year.
Yeah, and one thing that is with Albon is usually teammate points at Williams feel like a coin flip based on where we are. They're very, I would say, level pegged teammates. But Sainz does have a grid penalty for the Grand Prix on Sunday. So that could help set Albon up for some more teammate points this weekend than he usually is set up for.
Yeah, if Sainz can't make his way up the grid. So yeah, that penalty for plowing into Antonelli. Yeah, so next tier. We ready for that?
Let's do it.
Let's go with Fernando Alonso, Liam Lawson, Isaac Hadjar, and Carlos Sainz Jr. from 15.4 to 13 million. And this tier is which one?
This is the Paella tier. Paella is a high-carb Spanish dish, and this tier has 2 Spaniards and 2 V-carb drivers.
All right. Yeah, this tier not on the Atkins diet or the keto diet or whatever they call it now. I may have just dated myself. Anyway, out of this tier, this one's kind of hard to read. I'll say this one's definitely harder to read. And Hadjar, he's had his moments. the team didn't look so impressive in practice today. Hajar was 11th, and Iwasa drove the other car. Iwasa was like 17th or something. Hajar,
11th is a bad showing considering
and he's a
what we
second
had
off
out
the
there.
pace. He was a second off the pace, which is the bigger concern. So I'm not sure this is going to be a Racing Bulls week. So that's my takeaway on Lawson and Hajar. Sainz has the grid penalty. Like, this is a very fraught tier. Like Aston didn't look good. Alonso was behind Hajar in practice, and Jack Crawford drove the other car. But I mean, Lance Stroll would have driven the car. So what's the difference? They're both North American.
Yeah,
they're all the same, right?
Alonso and Hajar in practice were, I think, the two standout of what the heck just happened. I expected them to be near, maybe not on top of the charts or top 3, but definitely top 10. So that was surprising to me.
At least within a second.
Yeah, and that too. Like, why are they so far off the pace? Like, were they testing something? Were they just punting the session? Who knows? We'll I'm sure we'll learn a little bit more here when they get back on track in an hour or 2 or 2 hours, hour and a half.
Now you've got Sainz with the penalty. If he can get to Q3, I don't think it'll be as big of an anchor around him. But if he ends up at the back, he's going to get stuck at the back, and he might end up colliding with somebody again, would be my worry with Sainz.
Yeah, it's not a great situation for him, especially because as we've gone over in our game, he's not going to get the overtake points. Like, if he qualifies 8th, starts 13th, like, the overtake points are based on starting 8th. So it's kind of a double penalty for him. So I would be staying away from Sainz this weekend unless he just looks incredible in FP2, FP3, and even then, a little tough. But yeah, he's not a guy I'm looking at this weekend.
Yeah. So so this tier, I think I've pretty much ruled this in a void tier unless things look really good for Sainz. Next tier, last tier, we've got Nico Hulkenberg, Lance Stroll, Gabriel Bortoleto, Esteban Ocon, Franco Colapinto, and Pierre Gasly from 10.9 to 5.6 million. Which tier is this?
The Taco Bell tier. It's the Mexican food on a budget. These drivers are all the ones you're going to for budgetary needs, and there's a decent chance you're going to feel sick afterwards if you had them on your roster.
Yeah, definitely. I think Sauber actually showed some promise today. Like, I'm not hating Sauber, actually. We only saw
if that pace is for real.
We saw that, like, they both ran their race drivers, so they didn't have to replace Bortoleto because he's a rookie, and they didn't replace Hulkenberg. So we saw them both, and they both were competitive with respect to the fast cars. And Sauber has had some good moments. Sauber scored some points in Austin. And I think Hulkenberg, at the very least, is signable. I think Bortoleto is potentially signable. Looking at the rest of the tier, I'm not excited about Stroll. I'm not going to get on the stroller coaster given what we saw from Alonso. Ocon was top 10 among young drivers, but maybe this is a week where Ocon is fighting for points rather than behind Behrman for some reason. And Alpine, as usual, is trash, and I'm picking Alpine to fill out spots on my roster. Somehow Gasly has fallen behind Colapinto.
Yeah, I think the only thing Alpine has going for them is with the high elevation, cooling's important. Like, maybe the gap between them and everybody else is lessened just a tad. But yeah, there's really not much of a case to make for Alpine other than they're very cheap. And if you can squeeze them in and improve your roster in other spots, it might be worth it. Yeah, and seeing Gasly at 5.6, like well below Colapinto, is pretty crazy. What a rough year for him. But yeah, as far as the rest of the tier, it's if Hulkenberg and Bortoleto continue looking good like they did at FP1, then they are very signable. And like, honestly, probably talent driver target. They're extremely cheap, and if that pace is for real, then they are someone that should skyrocket to the top of the list of talent driver consideration. And it's kind of take your pick. They're the same price. It's whoever you like more. And yes, unfortunately, this does not seem to be a Lance Stroll, Aston Martin week. And Alonso looked bad today. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it's Aston Martin's fault. I don't think Lance Stroll should deserve any of the blame for poor results this weekend. They just clearly are not giving him the car to succeed in. So we're off of Lance Stroll, but only because the car sucks, not because Lance Stroll sucks.
Let's just clip those last 3 words. And
no, we're gonna fake news.
Fake news, out of context, sad. All right, so yeah, Sauber good, Stroll probably not, Ocon maybe, Alpine if he needs to fill spots. I think that's the takeaway.
Yeah, and if Ocon's for real, then he should probably be on every roster. If he is top 10 in every single practice session, sign him and don't think twice about it.
And we'll find that out later today. Like, I think FP2 is going to be telling, as it usually is. On to constructors then. And top 4 constructors, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull from 27.2 to 23.8 million. That's the first tier. And what do you think, Ryan?
I don't know. I do not think this is a good week to spend on a constructor. I think these 4, I don't know. If I'm spending money on a constructor, I probably would go McLaren, just because I think that both Piastri and Norris land themselves on the podium this weekend. I don't love Mercedes, Ferrari at these price points. I'd rather just pay the extra couple million and get McLaren. And Red Bull's tough because of Tsunoda. If Tsunoda looks awesome with the new front wing in the next 2 practice sessions, then I probably rank Red Bull ahead of Mercedes, Ferrari, because one of their drivers is probably the most likely guy to win the race. And if Tsunoda can put together a top 7 or 8 finish, that's a pretty solid showing for Red Bull. But yeah, again, with these prices, I just don't really love anyone up in this top tier. And if I had to spend the money, I'd probably just try and make McLaren work, because I think they'll be the highest scoring.
If I've got the money to spend, I actually am leaning towards Red Bull over McLaren. Like, I think Red Bull is slightly ahead of McLaren. I like Mercedes and Ferrari less, probably like Ferrari than Mercedes. Tsunoda's caught up. He's not going to be winning races or anything, but he's consistently scoring points, and Verstappen seems to be the favorite to win every week now. And McLaren is sliding back as cars are catching up. And McLaren has probably kicked their feet up just because they're the constructors champion. That's what they care about. They'll probably win the drivers championship. So Red Bull, then McLaren, then Ferrari, then Mercedes. And I'm not looking to buy Mercedes at all. I'm probably not signing Ferrari either. That's my thought about this tier. Like, I think Red Bull is sneaky good at this point in the year.
I think that's the first time this season that you've advocated for signing Red Bull, because they were always kind of in a spot where it just didn't work.
They were a 1-car team, and now
that one car wasn't winning.
And that too. I had 1 car and it wasn't very good. They're acting like a 2-car team now. Like, it's amazing what Mekis has done in just a few months. I wonder how they're going to look next year. I hope their power unit's up to the job next year. I think that's the big question mark. Is Red Bull has been burned by new power units twice in the hybrid era. Like, they got burned by Renault, and then they got burned by Honda, and now Honda's okay. Are they going to get burned by themselves / Ford?
Probably. I don't know if any of it's true, but the rumors sound not great about Ford. And so, again, no idea if it's true or not, but I feel like I'm seeing more bad than good when it comes to how Ford is going to fit in next year.
And Audi might actually be okay, is what I'm hearing. I hear they've already worked out a development token system in case your power unit really sucks. Like you can spend money to make it suck less, so that you don't have Alonso yelling GP2 engine for the whole world to hear.
So, like, spend money to make it suck less. It's the resolution for many problems in the world today.
Tell that to Toyota. I mean, back in the day, Toyota was an F1 back at one point in the early 2000s, and they were spending Ferrari money, and they managed like one pole under unusual circumstances, and like a podium or two, and nothing else. And Toyota was never good for all the money they spent. Anyway, next here is Racing Bulls, Aston Martin, and Haas from 16 million to 12.9 million. Are you interested in signing any of these constructors?
I think the only answer is Haas. We've kind of ripped on V-Carb and Aston Martin already based on how poor they looked earlier today. So unless there's something completely different from the way they look in the next two sessions, they are huge stayaways. And yeah, if Behrman joins Ocon on track and they both look good, Haas is a bargain at 12.9 if that pace is for real.
Yeah, I agree that with the data we have right now, Haas is the only signable constructor out of the three. That said, I'd rather have Sauber.
Yeah, I probably would too, just based on what we've seen. They're it's pretty similar price point, but yeah, it's probably a slight edge to them.
Which takes us into the final tier of Williams, Sauber, and Alpine. And Sauber looked the best out of these three. Do we want Williams with the Sainz penalty happening?
No, unless they look really good and you can just kind of overcome it. If Albon seems like he's going to be great and Sainz can maybe cut through the back markers, then potentially I don't really want any part of it. But I mean, Sauber's cheaper and looks better, so they probably have to be the play over Williams or anyone else. And then kind of, I'll sound like a broken record, but like always, Alpine is super cheap, significantly cheaper than anybody else. And I find myself with Alpine all of the time just because I can bolster the driver lineup, take Alpines here. And it's worth noting that slight advantage to Alpine, I guess, that there may be more reliability issues than normal. So if it happens to other teams that are not Alpine, that bumps up their finishing positions. And, they're already, the expectations are so rock bottom that even just finishing 16, 17 is not that bad when you're only spending 6 million on a constructor.
Yeah, they are usually the last cars running. And if there's 20 cars running, that's a problem. If there's fewer than 20 cars running, there's some free value there. And we'll see what
17th and 19th last week. Good for Colapinto. Hey, I did say that was one of the things I got right, that Colapinto will be better than Gasly. I think Mike laughed at me and said that was an insane thing to say. But
and he's conveniently not here to eat those words. So
yeah,
go figure. Halloween party. Anyway, Sauber. I like Sauber, and the fun thing about signing one of these cheap constructors, I'd say sign them for an even numbered of events, like say 2 maybe, so that you have the cheap constructor locked in for the sprint weekend at Brazil. If you go 4, that takes you through Qatar, which is our other sprint weekends, and you have more to play with on drivers. And if Sauber has a good couple of weekends, you'll gain some value, and you can go crazy down the stretch with whoever your last signings are.
Yeah, there's a decent chance I'll be running Alpine at every sprint through the rest of the season. Unfortunately, it's not fun to do, but sometimes you got to do the dirty work.
Yeah, the tricky thing is, like, Alpine has little upside unless it's Brazil and it's pouring rain, and you realize that they always throw red flags and you stay out and you double podium. Unless that happens,
who's to say it won't happen again? History can repeat itself.
Excuse me while I look up the long range forecast for Sao Paulo, Brazil, 2 weeks from now. Anyway, The problem is like the gap from Alpine to the next constructor is fairly big, which is what puts me off of them usually. Like I have to be able to significantly upgrade the driver to be able to justify that. Anything else about these bottom ranked constructors?
No, I think it's really just keep a close eye on Sauber in these next practice sessions because they are the ones probably showing the most promise out of anyone. Could be real, might not be. I have no way of knowing. I don't think anyone does. So look at those practice sessions. If they continue to look strong, then I think Sauber is an easy top constructor pick at price.
All right. So how about we get into the $100 million lineup? So
Go for it.
We'll go over the US GP lineup. This is Sainz's fault. This was not a good weekend for the $100 million lineup, and this was because of Carlos Sainz primarily. I had Max Verstappen, Kimi Antonelli talent driver, Carlos Sainz Jr., Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Alpine. And I scored on a sprint weekend a whopping 821 points because Sainz ran into my talent driver. So, yeah, double whammy there. That turns like a 900 plus point weekend into an 821 weekend. And this is also why in my actual lineup, Ryan scored 1 point more than me. Yeah, that's 700 more times you'll be in the lead.
All right. If there's 700 races left in the season, yeah, you're right. I'll get up to you and close that gap.
Unfortunately, not even NASCAR has that many events.
But we are running away with the league. It is.
We are.
I can't catch you, but barring something crazy,
I could have some very bad weekends, and we have to have divergent lineups, which seems less likely because we're both signing good drivers.
Yeah, I might have to. Yeah, I might have to throw the. We'll get into. I think in the next couple of shows when it's extremely important, depending on where you are in your league, what your lineup should be. Obviously, if you are ahead, like William is, you are probably just going to play it safe, pick high floor drivers, sprinkle them throughout the lineup. Whereas I may be faced with the decision of taking some high risk, high reward potential, because that might be my only way to close the gap. So we will get into that in the future shows as the season is winding down to the point where you're going to be tailoring your lineup specifically to where you are in the standings.
All right, so I've drafted 2 lineups. We'll go with the official one first. This is the one that assumes that Sauber is actually good. If Sauber is actually good, we're taking Leclerc, Piastri, Antonelli talent driver, Hulkenberg, Ocon, and Sauber for a total of 99.8 million. That's if Sauber is actually good. If Sauber is an absolute disaster, we have a plan B lineup after practice. So that would be Hamilton, Antonelli talent driver, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Ocon, and Red Bull.
Oh, and Red Bull. All right.
Yeah, echoing on my thought that Red Bull's actually a potentially good constructor choice. Someone asking where I am in the official GridRival league. I'm pulling open my GridRival app. That lineup does not track the. That doesn't track what I do in the company league. Like I use a different lineup there. In the official league, I am 247th. If we want to talk about the global leaderboard, I'm 217th with my company league lineup, which is my best lineup right now.
Oh, that's really, I am way behind you globally, which I guess makes sense. A lot of people on the app. I'm 2,779 on the global leaderboard. Not bad.
Yeah, certainly not bad at all. With over 100,000 users here. Yes, Tsunoda and Red Bull, I am feeling brave. The thing is, like when you're working with a limited budget, you've got to pick your spots. And we've tripled up sometimes. Like there was a triple S in lineup a few weeks ago that paid off nicely.
Yeah, and now, especially now that he's not here to defend himself, Mike GP can't even imagine how far down he is on the global leaderboard, being so far behind the two of us. Maybe if you didn't insult all of our driver takes, he'd be doing well.
Yeah, he's not even on the globe. He's like on the moon or something. So yeah, $100 million lineup. Let's see. We got a bit of time. Other questions in the chat? Other things people are wondering. As somebody, no, I'm happy to be watching from Australia. Yeah, glad the time worked to be something somewhat Australian friendly. I guess it's in the morning out there. It's already Saturday morning. Maybe you could tell us how FP2 went since you're in the future.
Another Australian. Good day from Sydney.
Do I sell my soul to get Max back? How much is your soul worth? If it's between a McLaren and Max, I'm not cutting a McLaren to take Max. I'm writing out my McLaren driver. If that's what you mean there.
Yeah, I think Lando and Oscar are close enough to not warrant paying that huge drop fee. Again, could change maybe because Piastri was not that impressive today. If he continues to look like a tractor and Max is topping the charts, and we are at the point of the season where it is. I would never advocate for this like the second or third race of the season, but if you have decent budget, you can spend a couple million on a drop fee to chase points because right now it's all about points. So yeah, if Max continues to blow the doors off the McLarens, then go ahead and do it, but wait until after FP3.
Would you go Hadjar or Signs for talent driver? Yuck.
Neither, I think, is the right answer. I would, if what we saw continues, there are probably both cut candidates. If those are your only two under the talent driver line, I would get rid of one of those two and maybe sign one of the Saubers and talent driver that, or even Sonoda, depending on what you can afford. If those are your only two talent driver eligible, I think a change might be on the horizon for you.
African Giant, what's this about Hadjar's power unit? Potential power unit issue? I hadn't heard that. I am now frantically searching Twitter to see if there's any headlines about that. Latest.
Mexico is not a good place to have power unit issues.
That would be unfortunate. I'm not seeing anything on Twitter. Maybe the search is not searching, but
it must have just happened because I was not aware either. Unless I completely missed it.
Yeah, we'll see as it goes on. I don't know if they have any spares yet left before they take a penalty if that becomes a problem. Yeah, so neither would be my vote right now for talent. If they look bad, cut them and find somebody. If Sauber looks good and Hadjar looks bad, cut Hadjar. Take a Sauber because Hadjar is going to lose value and the Sauber is potentially going to gain value. So yeah, there's a fee, but if they have a bad day, you're going to lose that anyway. It's just going to take you an extra couple of days to do it.
Yeah, and again, just especially the way that we treat penalties, signs is just really hard to get behind.
Yeah, and we want points at this point. At this time of the year, you could sign somebody for the rest of the season. So we're not even necessarily trying to build value. We're just trying to maximize our points. So, but those usually go hands in hands. Unless you're maxing, you're worth 30 million already.
Yeah.
So
he breaks the game.
He
not
does.
So much this year, but in the past he has. It's been weird.
And F1 goes through these spells. Like if we were around in the mid 2010s, Hamilton would have had the same effect. Apart from the 1 year that Rosberg was beating him.
And then Mercedes would have been 30 million every single week.
Pretty much.
Which we did see with McLaren for a stint of this season before it all kind of
they hit the
took a
ceiling.
wrong turn for them.
So dubbing Russell and a Racing Bull driver for Max and Bortoletto. I want to see FP2 before I dump Russell. Like I think Russell's somebody who could compete for a podium spot.
Yeah, I would wait. I mean, I will say if the roster locked down in 10 minutes, I would do that. But there's no point in doing it now, and you might as well wait. But the gut instinct on that one is it does sound like a good move to get. Or was it Max? And I lost it in the chat. But yeah, that sounded good. Max is better than Russell, and dumping a Racing Bull is probably a good idea for a Sauber.
And are we feeling the Ferrari drivers over the Mercedes drivers? Caleb asks. Here's my order. It just flew out of my head. Leclerc, Russell, Antonelli, Hamilton, if I'm ranking those drivers. So it's not necessarily one team over the other. Poor Hamilton. We keep picking on him. And he can podium. Like at any time, he could podium and prove me wrong. But I need to see something from him.
Even when he seems to have the pace, like something weird has happened to him. I mean, most of the races, he just doesn't seem to be able to compete with the guys who are top 4, top 5. And he just, slots into like that P6, P7 area. But it will be very interesting if, like, to close out this season, Antonelli is consistently ahead of him, which is possible.
Yep. And that is 100% possible. And Hamilton's not getting any younger. And certainly they've got the right engineer on Antonelli's car. He's got Bono working with him, just like he was working with Hamilton. So yeah, waiting for FP3. That's definitely the right answer. And yeah, Antonelli can burn you sometimes. Last week was not his fault. Last week was Sainz's fault. And that was unfortunate. And there's been a couple of times he's just gotten caught up in something. Any other questions? We got a few minutes. Busy race weekends. We also do run NASCAR leagues and NASCAR picks in our picks game if you're in one of those states where you can do that. Martinsville this weekend, that's a fun track. I've been there a few times. Short track up in Virginia. Hopefully the racing's a bit better than it's been on the short tracks. And we find out who gets to compete for the championship.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure we'll see some race manipulation, everyone's favorite term.
Yeah, I'm gonna have my YouTube multi-view working overtime this weekend. Probably have that and F1. They'll probably overlap, and I'll have the Bronco game on, and I'll have something else on probably. But
Lapidus family, thank you for your support as well. I will always support you if you continue to support me. So we can be a team together. I like that.
Our Marshmallow cheering for the Blue Jays to upset the Dodgers. We've got a member of the team who's a big Dodger fan. I hope he's not listening. I personally am a Met fan, so I stopped caring after we completely choked a month ago. Hadjar had power issues in Austin. Yeah, okay, not a power unit issue, but that usual complaining. Like Max is always complaining about the shifts. People are always complaining that they find, like with Hamilton, it was always tires are gone. How many times did you hear him say that?
I was just glad it wasn't a real, because I spend a lot of time staying on top of all the news, knowing who's having issues, what's going on, and I was like, "Ooh, this would have been a miss if I missed this one."
Yeah, which actually though, it's an interesting question. Who do we think is going to get burned by a power unit penalty before the end of this year? That's the great unknown.
I saw the FIA published who has gone through what going into this race. I have to pull it back up and to come up with an actual answer to that one. Oh, all right, Toaster Boy. Michael Toaster Boy, we're glad to see you here, even though it is on some sort of burner account, I'm sure, for your trolling of other shows.
Leading a double life. No, I'm asking, with 35.5 million for 2 drivers, would it be better to do Piastri 5 on a discount and then sign somebody like Bortoleto? That sounds like a good plan.
I do like Piastri for long term, just because I don't see any way he continues to fall in value. I expect him to gain this back. I expect him to get back to his form of being on the podium every single weekend. Could be wrong, but I would much rather take the chance that's going to happen, sign him long term, than the other side of that.
Yeah, he can podium, if not race win. The only risk, I think, with the McLarens is them running into each other again, which we've seen that happen this year. We've seen that happen in McLaren's history, like Senna and Prost all those years ago, famously colliding at Suzuka as they were fighting for a championship.
God, a McLaren collision like in Austin at the sprint, although they got bowled into, but God, imagine Max winning a race and that happening in an actual race rather than a sprint. That turns everything upside down.
It's 25 points instead of 8. Yeah, that could change it all. Would you go Max for 5? If I'm taking Max at this price, I'm definitely taking him for 5 races. There's no reason to think that he can't fight for a win at each of these 5 remaining races.
Yep, and Red Bull is committed to this season and upgrading the car. They brought more upgrades than I think anyone else for both the cars. So I did see some interview that they are sacrificing some of the research for next year to see this season through the end, which I did not see coming, especially a couple months ago. But that's where we are.
I wonder if that's another subtle sign that they expect next year to go badly.
Yeah, like read between the lines a bit.
If the Ford's garbage, it doesn't matter how good the chassis is next year.
It'd be crazy. See Verstappen competing for P8 all next year,
fighting for points,
winning everything,
or more likely at the side of the road every other week, with a failure.
And then I can't even. Honestly, whoever's in that second seat, then if Red Bull is trash, that could be the worst seat on the grid. Like that could be getting beat by Colapinto every week.
That could be, and it sounds like he's going to be back in the Alpine next year. Noam is hoping that Woody takes out Max Orlando to get Piastri a win. Yeah, George Russell, a lot of people compare him to Woody from Toy Story. I can definitely see the resemblance, especially if you put the cowboy hat on him. When's the next sprint? Brazil. So the next round after this one, Brazil is the next sprint. And then 2 rounds after that is the last one. That'll be Qatar. So I think just 5 races to go this year. We're getting near the end.
Vegas coming up too. That'll be fun.
And it'll be at a slightly earlier hour. It's not going to resemble Japan with the start time. Thank God.
Yeah, whoever came up with all that. Good job. Good job, F1. Good job all around.
I like this job. I like it less when it keeps me up until 4 a.m. So make sure that you all get your fantasy scores. Like that's the least enjoyable part of the job, I have to say.
Yeah, there are many a weekend where William and I just do not get to sleep. But we do it because we love you guys.
I'm so glad they put the Asia races up front and there's fewer of them now. Like I remember the days when they had Singapore, they had Korea, they had Fuji.
Oh man.
Yeah. Imagine if Vietnam had actually happened. Like before the pandemic, there was supposed to be a race in Vietnam. That's just so. Oh, India! I forgot about India. They had a day 2 for a couple of years.
Oh God.
Yeah. So hey, it could be worse. Wait, instead we get 6 races in the Americas, which is like a quarter of the season.
Yeah, and then I complain about the races in the Americas because it's on at the same time as football.
And NASCAR, and in a couple of cases, IndyCar, those mid-year races. We're the official fantasy game of IndyCar. I can't wait for IndyCar to start up again in March. Definitely check that out next year.
There was a decent amount of IndyCar talk on the broadcast this morning, if you caught it.
Yeah, with Paddle Award taking part in practice and
some Pelot chatter as well.
Is Pelot up to the job? Like, I think I'd love to see Pelot in an F1 car. I doubt it'll happen, but I would love to see it.
Yeah, get some Herta chatter as well. Always good to hear IndyCar getting talked about on some of the biggest stages. So we hope for the best with IndyCar. We love IndyCar. Come back next year for our IndyCar game.
Yeah, I love to see them getting respect on the global stage for sure. Yeah, and let's see, anything else? Okay, yeah. Apparently, it's a reasonable time in Australia as well. So,
see, I think that's my favorite race time, is especially with a lot of the European races kick off maybe 7, 8 a.m. my time. I love a 7 or 8 a.m. race. Wake up, get some coffee, watch the race, and then it's done.
Yeah, I like that. I also like that the Europe races start when they do now. They used to start an hour earlier for a while, and I lived in Seattle for a few years, and I'd be up at 5 a.m. to watch F1, and I'd rather it not be 5 a.m.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Yeah, but
the worst
the
are the things
okay.
at like 3. Yeah, 2 to 3, 2 and 3 a.m. are my least favorite because midnight 1 a.m. I can just stay up. 5 a.m. it's not great, but wake up early. That 2 3 a.m. kind of time slot is never fun because it's just right in the middle of things, and hate it.
Yeah. All right, we are just about at the top of the hour, and we've got second practice coming up in just over an hour. So definitely tune in and watch that. And I'm sure our Discord will have plenty of chatter about what to do with lineups based on FP2. Maybe Sauber's for real, maybe they're not. We're going to have a pretty good indication a couple hours from now. And good luck with your lineups this weekend.
Yeah, I'm just excited to get all the drivers back on track. The scoring tower bug on the left, like all the new initials were kind of breaking my brain. It just didn't look right. So it'll be good to be back in the comfort zone with FP2 coming up here.
The F1 site did not even have a photo for Hirakawa.
The F1 site had all
that wasn't
sorts
even his first time doing practice. That's the really wild thing.
They were having all sorts of data issues too. I don't know if that's related. And I know F1 TV was having some issues with the broadcast and some technical problems.
None of the onboards were working.
Yeah,
I watched the Sky coverage on ESPN. They did not have any onboards. They did not have any radio. I'm just glad I'm not working for F1 this weekend.
Yeah, so hopefully that stuff gets sorted out. But yeah, I don't know, William, unless you have anything else, I think that pretty much does it for us today. Watch FP2 and FP3 closely. Hopefully we've given you enough information to know what you're looking for. But if not, hit us up in the Discord and we're always there.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks for Brazil.
Yeah. And thank you guys all for tuning in. We appreciate it. And we will see you in a couple weeks. All right. We are off live. We're no longer live.
Wonderful.